Today we are gathered here to have a meeting, a convening of very important stakeholders to discuss issues related to adolescent sexual and reproductive health. This meeting is important because in 2019 we had a similar meeting where we brought together civil society groups, policy actors, including people from the governments and people from the international organization, including the WHO, people from SADC, Parliamentary Forum, people from the East African community, people from all the regional blocks in Africa together to co-create a research agenda to help us understand the issues, the gaps that need evidence in adolescent sexual and reproductive health. And since that time, APHRC has conducted research around these issues that were identified from that 2019 convening. And the focus of the research that we have done is on the issue of pregnant and parenting adolescents. This is one of the key themes that emerged from the 2019 meeting. The reason is that there is a lot of exclusion for girls, especially, who become pregnant or have children as adolescents. There are a lot of ramifications for them. They are not able to go to school. Even when they were in school, because of pregnancies, the school expel them. They get out of school. They cannot continue school, which means that their livelihood in the future is affected. That of the child that they are going to have is affected. Everyone connected to them is affected by the fact that they get pregnant. Meanwhile, in these countries, many countries in Africa, we have the return to school policy, the policy that allows girls who get pregnant or who have children to return to school or to continue to go to school while they are pregnant and to return after they've had their babies. But the reality is that it is not happening. There are many reasons that are responsible for that. Some of them are institutional at the school level, some of them are policy. The policy is there, but the implementation, the guideline for implementation, the fidelity to implement those policies, they are not there. So it makes it very difficult. Even where girls are able to return to school, the challenges they face in the school are enormous. There is stigma from other students, there's bullying, there's no support, and from what we found from this study, it looks like for girls to be able to return to school, they need child care support. Who is going to take care of their children for them to return to school? But if we don't help them, if we don't make positive strategic decisions, and in fact, real deliberate decisions to help them, then we mean that we are condemning those girls and their children to a cycle of poverty, because the girl is not going to school, you will end up not having a good job or will not be able to work. In fact, even marriage will be a problem for such girls. So we condemn them to a situation that they will be perpetually in the situation that they cannot get out of. There are so many things. For governments, what can they do? The government can make sure that the policies that they develop, that they are followed through. There are implementation guidelines. There is budget allocated for making sure that such things are taking place. The return to school policy is working. There is the issue at the school level. You need to sensitize the school to understand that pregnancy, getting pregnant is not the end of the world. And it should not end a girl's life. It should be a situation where girls can go forth. In fact, we have seen from example of people who got pregnant at an early age, return to school because the situation allowed them, and they've risen to become very important people in society. So what we are advocating for here is, let the government, let the civil society, let the researchers, let us all come together and say, what can we do? And how can we do it to make sure that the young girls who get pregnant before time do not experience this? But in the first place, how do we ensure that girls do not get pregnant before they are adults? One of such strategies that we can use is comprehensive sexuality education. I know that the idea of comprehensive sexuality education is contested, is controversial in our context, but whether we give comprehensive sexuality education or not, the reality is that young people are having sex. But the deal is that they're having sex when they are not prepared for it, they don't have the right information. But sexuality education can help in that regard. It can provide them with the information they need. It can help them in how to engage in safe sex. There is a lot of contention. People have a lot of contention that once you start having sex, then you should know that you can get pregnant. But I tell you, we have to disabuse. We have to come away from the notion that sex is only for the purpose of procreation. We know if sex is only for the purpose of procreation, adults who have had 2, 3 children and no longer want to have children, they will stop having sex. So sex is not just for procreation. It's for pleasure. It's for companionship. So if we have to prepare ourselves for these things, that if you have sex, then you should not be condemned to a life of misery, of poverty, then we will get somewhere. Remember that it's the girls that suffer the most. Boys who get them pregnant, they keep going to school. Sometimes they may drop out to take care of the girls that they get pregnant, but they ultimately return to school. And sometimes they don't leave school. Sometimes it's not even boys of the same age who get girls pregnant. Sometimes it's the teachers, it's the adults. In Nigeria, we refer to this as big sugar daddies. These are the people who are old enough, who have money, who entice young girls with money, because of course we live in a context of poverty. If girls are unable to meet their needs, we have sugar daddies who give them money to meet their needs. The tendency, the likelihood is that they get pregnant from that situation. When they get pregnant, the sugar daddies run away because they are married, and they cannot go destroy their marriage because they've gotten a girl pregnant. Who is left to carry the burden? It's the girl. The teacher gets a girl pregnant. It's the girl that is left to bear the burden. So the issue here is about the girl child. You see from the findings that we have presented today, 54% of the girls that we studied in Burkina Faso were already married. How can we have 54% of adolescent girls married? Which means that this issue is not just about child pregnancy and childbearing, parenting, but it's also of early marriage. How do we deal with early marriage? How do we deal with making sure that girls who get pregnant are not left behind? Remember that the Sustainable Development Goal says we should not leave anyone behind. Let no one be left behind. So if you leave the girl who got pregnant behind, then eventually development is not going to be equitable. Access to the better things of life are not going to be equitable. I think this is for that purpose that we hold this workshop. And this workshop, as you see, it has people from the policy making wing, it has people from the NGO implementation side, we have people from the research and academic side, so that we can forge a marriage between these three groups of people: the researchers, the implementers of programs, the decision makers who make policies and guidelines, so that together, hopefully, we can make things work and change the situation for our young people across Africa. Even though this study was done in Malawi and Burkina Faso, the fact is that the findings apply across African countries. The same situations that you find in Malawi, you definitely find in Nigeria. The same situation you definitely find in Tanzania. So things like that means that men will continue to rise while women will continue to stay in the background. That's not good for gender equity. It's something that we need to address. This is the purpose for which we have held this workshop.